It's really a global issue where nobody has truly figured out how to transition veterans back in a, very efficient way. And, I think back meaning from military service into, civilian profession, civilian life. And I think that, shouldn't necessarily be so beat up, that scenario, because it's only recent that us as a society as a whole have realized what PTS is, right? Have realized what impact, military careers, military service does to a human person. And I think and hope it's continuing to trend in a positive, motion direction toward, better supporting that transition. It's not going to happen quick. Anyways, long story short point of what I'm saying is, I think as trajectory continues around awareness and the how to transition into civilian profession, we'll see more of, transitioning into project management type roles.
Hello, everybody. Gavin Coyle. I'm the Gaffer, back again. And I've got a very interesting conversation to have with this gentleman, and really looking forward to this particular podcast because he has a very interesting background, but not just that, he is very influential in the area of construction and has a lot to give back, and he has a different perspective than most guys that I would have known in the industry or that we've spoken to on this podcast. And that's why there's a really good angle to this podcast. His name is Adam Stark, and he's the principal and co-founder from Jet.Build. How are you, Adam?
Gavin, it's great to be on the show. Excited for our conversation. As you put it right before we recorded, we got a lot of great banter between us, so excited to see where the conversation flows.
Okay, so right out of the bat, let's just put it on the table. You're an ex-special ops veteran.
Correct.
And so let's get into that straight away because, I'm sure the listeners are going to go, wow, where's all this coming from and where's it going to go?
Yeah, so, growing up, I guess what you would consider as a, typical teenage boy, got excited by, the Rambos of the world, got intrigued by, just building things in general, being outside, all of those, again, traditional kind of young boy hobbies, right? And that's kind of what led me in my path of service in the military. Served in airborne special operations, recon was our kind of MO. Had a really great experience, really great teammates that are friends and what I like to call family for life. And I think that kind of led me into the path where I'm at today and what I'm doing today.
Yeah, look, I resonate with that completely from our own business, where we have very good relationships with ex-military guys, especially in offshore wind, oil and gas. There seems to be a great transition there from the service and then going into those industries where it's high risk as well, big challenging projects. And these guys just, it doesn't faze them in one bit at all. And they, system, process, structure, discipline, communication, all the good stuff that we talk about in the podcast that makes a good construction company. These guys have the skill set. They might not have particularly the trade background. That's not always true, but I appreciate that. But, the skill set is just off the charts. And, another reason for getting me on the podcast is we're struggling in the construction industry to attract great talent. And yet there's thousands of, service people that have all this skill set that are sitting there waiting to be called upon. And, what's wrong? You give it to me straight. Why aren't these guys getting into construction in a bigger way? Or are they already? And I just don't see it.
Yeah, it's a great question. What we were talking about a bit before, I see a few things. One is to your point of, SIN veterans and how they perform in industries, like you mentioned. First and foremost, I'll touch on that, which is the principles in which we're taught in a system, right? Trained in a system, which I like to call is, hundreds of years and trillions of dollars of kind of management principles, right? In all of the skill sets that you mentioned, right? Whether it's communications, whether it's working in stress environments, whether it's creating action plans, AARs, right? So after action reports. So, I mean, it's a lot of kind of skill sets that can be translated into really any environment, particularly so in those environments like construction, like the built environment, where you are actually continuing to work in a laborious environment, working with different teams, schedule intensive, have to communicate well, so on and so forth. And that's why you see lots of, positive impact from veterans in our ecosystem. Now, to answer your question in terms of, why don't we see more transition into that space? Why do we have such a need for workforce? I think that construction, generally speaking, or built environment, generally speaking, when I say built environment, right, that everything that encompasses, real estate, construction, architecture, and engineering. So the whole entire ecosystem. I don't know that it gets enough good kind of press or press at all, really, in terms of opportunity for work, opportunity for career. I see, a lot flashier types of career paths get, more mention, naturally so, whether it be, just tech, in any space, really, right? So a part of, what we're trying to do with the podcast that we created, the Veterans Who Build show, is build a roadmap for veterans into the built environment, particularly because of what you highlighted, right? It's veterans have great skill sets that can be leveraged in our space. And also there is a need for workforce in all fronts in built environment, generally speaking.
I just, as you're talking there, like this is not just related to, Canada and America. This is a global problem. That we're not fitting these people back into the common industry of construction outside of the service industry. So, if you had a magic wand, and if I gave you like 500 ex-service retired professionals, how would you prepare them for construction, or to get them? How would you convince them to go into construction?
That's an amazing question. What I would do first and foremost is I would show a lot of before and after images, right, of job sites. So what it looks like before, whether it be an empty lot, whether it be a decrepit building, and what the aftermath, what the result is, what the end result is. It's a beautiful property, beautiful space, beautiful apartment building, hospital, whatever it is. I think that's incredible, right? So to really just be able to visualize what you are literally going to accomplish by coming on this job site, I think that will go a long way. Second is, and we were talking about this before we hit record, is, I'm going to go ahead and just make fun of myself, is I went through 2 traditional, quote unquote, degrees of learning, right? Undergrad and graduate degree. And looking back in hindsight, I would have loved to, with the hindsight knowledge that I have today, I would have loved to have gone to a trade school, whether it be electrician, plumber, whatever it may be. I would show that kind of same pro and con, one versus the other path to these veterans that you're giving me the opportunity to employ. I would show them that same kind of a career path, and it just feels like a no-brainer. I mean, how do you not decide to go to trade school if you're looking at that one against one versus one?
Yeah, our business outside of the podcast, our business is health and safety. It seems to be a very natural fit for military, ex-service military people and health and safety. Now that might sound crazy for some people, but these people get risk. They understand risk, and they understand how to. They understand empathy as well. Believe it or not, they have a lot of passion, and they have a lot of motivation, and they have a lot of discipline to try and put together the right processes and systems to get the desired outcome. And they can evaluate risk off the cuff, basically in front of them, and they don't get fazed by, all the other stuff that's going on, the noise in the background. They're very able, they're very, very clear and very methodical. And like the oil and gas industry was the first industry that I kind of sticks in my mind that said it's the military guys that are going to fit in here 100%, because we need to have a military style operation to a dynamic environment. And the guys that I've met that had expert service backgrounds, they've done really, really, really well for themselves. Like if we're talking about money, that's not a discussion. They've been more than well paid. So I'm surprised that it hasn't leaked into the other careers within. It's definitely gone into safety, and it's definitely gone into that compliance type role, whether it's safety or whether it's quality or whatever that is. But I don't see it transferring into the project management type side of things. Or have you got a take on that, Adam?
Yeah, I think relative to what could potentially be in terms of percentages of veterans in the space of the project management side, it's not there, right? It should be there. It should grow. So I agree with you entirely.
But they're leaders. Sorry to cut across you. Yeah.
So kind of what you pointed out before, it's really a global issue where nobody has truly figured out how to transition veterans back in a very efficient way. And I think back, meaning from military service into civilian profession, civilian life. And I think that shouldn't necessarily be so beat up, that scenario, because it's only recent that us as a society as a whole have realized what PTS is, right? Have realized what impact, military careers, military service does to a human person. And I think and hope it's continuing to trend in a positive, motion direction toward, better supporting that transition. It's not going to happen quick. Anyways, long story short point of what I'm saying is I think as trajectory continues around awareness and the how to transition into civilian profession, we'll see more of, transitioning into project management type roles. That said, have a few already released on the podcast as examples. And again, trying to kind of highlight on my podcast, that is, I try to highlight, right, more of those examples. So to provide other veterans kind of the awareness and just recognition that exists. And it's a capability that they have should they harness it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting that you brought up the topic about trades and not having a defined academic type trade or a craft skill. Yet the guys go out when they build all these camps and they create sewerage, sanitary, water. Your business. It's beyond me that doesn't connect with a project management skill, along with obviously a leadership skill. So what's the feedback on the podcast, the veteran? So just to be clear, you're a host of the Veterans Who Build show, which is a show to promote and encourage veterans back into civilian life, as you call it.
Exactly. So it's exactly as you put it, the Veterans Who Build show. It's highlighting veteran stories, and in highlighting veteran stories, it's also creating a roadmap for other veterans to hear. That roadmap is relatability first and foremost. Second is talking about transitioning from military to civilian. And then third is translatable skill sets, military career to civilian careers. And that kind of process, right, outlines how to get involved in the built environment, what to expect, how to kind of prepare for it. And those kind of theories of thought, which, they're really basic and easy to accomplish so long as you have someone to tell you, because it's harder than it sounds, which is funny to say, right? So long as you hear it and someone helps you understand those basic kind of needs in transitioning, it's really easy to understand and accomplish and therefore strive toward. Without someone guiding you in that capacity, it's also very easy to get lost, which is why you see kind of the negative or the hardships that veterans face in transitioning. So really interesting to kind of bring that to light and see how simple it can be so long as we provide the correct support. So that's kind of the show, its purpose, what we're doing.
Well, there's one commonality that sticks out for me, and that probably could be highlighted more, is that the construction industry, especially in today's world, has been highlighted as one of the most challenging industry for mental health. And you spoke there about mental health of service professionals coming back. I know the trauma that they may have experienced is on a different level in some cases, but generally speaking, it's still the same issue. It's a mental trauma of some sort. And there's a commonality there. Like, is there a bias of taking on an army person because you might feel that they mightn't have the capacity to deal with, fast-paced, dynamic environment that's going to challenge them? Do you think is the construction industry putting some barriers in the way there?
So, I mean, first of all, you're absolutely correct. There is relatively speaking, similar issue as it relates to PTS and construction, which is something that I would love to kind of understand better. I don't feel I'm knowledgeable enough to speak to that, other than you're absolutely right. I'm glad that you highlighted that, because it is something that is being brought to light more and more, in the recent year, even, right? 2 years, maybe. So it's really interesting to see that kind of a parallel. Definitely would love to kind of understand that more, and I'll do some of my own due diligence. Now, in terms of, the second part of what you said, the question, I think that generally speaking, there's a barrier or a perception of veterans and hiring veterans, and kind of maybe on both sides, right? Meaning from veterans and also from employers, or just, civilians generally speaking, where you'll, appreciate someone's service, but then at the same time be distant because you have this perception of, there's someone who's been to war and is aggressive and whatever. So there needs to be kind of a way to, find a middle ground. And that's also a purpose of, the Veterans Who Build show, is to say, here are veterans who are working civilian professionals who are doing awesome things. This exists and this is a reality. Let's kind of move away from the, false perceptions.
Yeah, it kind of, I don't know either, but it comes across to me that there's fragmentation in the process of once you come out of service, that there isn't enough collaboration in order to work on a positive way of entering into these types of industries. That's what I don't know that for fact. That's my own opinion, but it does feel like there isn't, I know in the UK, for example, they do a lot of programs to reintegrate service members back into the civilian community, and they do a lot of funding, and they help employers as well, in terms of there's agencies that will work with employers and say, look, we've got this, we'll match some service people with your company and stuff like that. And there's great monetary value for both people. So the employer can get a grant, and obviously the service person gets all these courses and stuff like that to get them up to speed. Is that not the case where you are in your world?
Yeah, so it is the case. That said, the difficult dynamic around that scenario is the reintegration process. It's not a matter of, 1 month or 2 months or even 6 months. I mean, this is something that can, be an extended period of time. I would suggest at a minimum 6 months, really. I mean, I don't really know, unless you're lucky. It's going to take you at least 6 months to really kind of get back into civilian life, work toward understanding your traumas and how to manage them. So that's really the issue, right? Is to how do you create a system that is going to be, there for you, there to support you for an extended period of time, and how do you create goals to work toward and in those kind of positive, action items so you could reintegrate. That's I feel like most veterans would agree with that statement, and I think that's the true issue around finding kind of the correct dynamic of reintegration.
Yeah, like the other way you could look at this is you could say that the construction industry has failed, that they should be partnering with the naval bases and with the military and kind of saying, look, why don't we introduce programs on the way in so that the 16-year-old that signs up or the 17-year-old that signs up to service doesn't get totally institutionalized into one path and one theory and one model, and that there's a parallel program running aside saying, look, if this ever drops out for you, at least you have a parachute, pardon the pun, to fall back on. And so it seems like it's reactive. That's the exit door comes, and then all these kind of services and these sort of funds come after the fact.
Yeah, the word that you just said was absolutely the correct word, which is reactive, right? I mean, you see that generally speaking in healthcare, right? There's a lot of difficulties with healthcare because it's all reactive rather than proactive. So yeah, what I've heard from veterans who have been on our show and have reintegrated relatively seamlessly, it's interesting to see the pattern where they spoke about before they finished service, before they separated from service, they started thinking and creating a path toward reintegration, whether that was, starting an education in whatever, trajectory they were going, whether that be a trade school or a traditional university, or it was, finding a career path, right, already before finishing service. And they seem to, at least relatively speaking, right? I can't say, oh yeah, seamless and they're 100% okay. No, but it's better, right? It's better than the alternative of finishing service and now you're alone and stuck in a hole, really. Yeah.
So let's just take a step back then, and let's start talking about you as in your career. So you obviously came out and built a career for yourself after the fact. So did you have a parallel when you were in the service, or did you just start from scratch when you came out?
Yeah, no. So my plan was university when I finished service. I don't necessarily think that was I don't know if I would call it the best way to transition. And the reason I say that is it was really difficult for me to be in a program. It was a school in Boston. Be in a program with really kids that were just in completely different phases of life. That was jarring for me. So I'm not sure what the right answer is there in my own hindsight kind of learnings, but that was my experience, and that was my kind of plan per se. So I guess at a minimum, I wasn't finishing service and left with no plan, nothing to do. So there's that. Once I finished my undergraduate degree, I started my civilian career in the built environment. So I was working for builders in New York City, building hotel, residential, commercial projects, and that was kind of my aha moment for what I'm doing today with Jet.Build.
Yeah, but like I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile here. I won't go to the bed, bath, and beyond. We'll leave that one aside. But marketing was obviously your step in. Right. Then you went to your forces, and then you went to AIG, massive company, marketing manager in AIG. Wow, what a job! Senior marketing manager, Parker and Bailey, co-founder of Treat Your Mind, vice president, construction and redevelopment, G Holdings, chief of staff, Avo, like creative director, Stark Eye. Like I'm looking at you and I'm thinking to myself, you're not over 40 years of age looking at you. Podcast host and now principal of Jet.Build. Like, what the hell? Like that's why I asked you the question. Like, sure. Did you have a career before you went into the service? It's brilliant. You've had a really interesting career. If I was to say to you in sort of one summary of everything that you are, what would you say is your core purpose as a career today as it is? Out of everything that you've done, what would be the one that you say, do you know what, that's me?
I think the Veterans Who Build show, I'm so energized by it. I love the purpose of creating a community and giving back to the community, while also focused on the built environment, which is kind of the majority of my career. So that's kind of how I summarize it. And I just hustled all of life. So a lot of those roles I was doing simultaneously with undergrad, which is also why I kind of throw shade on the traditional schooling system. I think it's overextended. It's too lax, and it could be less time. So that's what allowed me to kind of work simultaneously. I was intrigued by marketing because I really like design. And that's also what I really liked about the built environment, and kind of what I mentioned before when you asked me if I had veterans, how would I intrigue them into construction? It's, well, look at what you can do, right? I love the visual. I love the tangible outcome. So they kind of do follow. Yeah, thank you.
Very inspirational. Yeah, I have to say, to the podcast is definitely one. Like, I know from talking to you we've had pre-chat chats, if you like, and I know that you can see a change in you when you start talking about the podcast. Your podcast, you kind of see that there's a bit of energy that, there's a bit of a jump in you when the podcast is mentioned. So it's definitely something that you're getting a lot out of. Kind
of the aha moment for the podcast was just reflecting on my own journey, reflecting on my own kind of hardships and in reintegration. And then in that reflection, I realized it because of listening to other veterans and their experiences, which made me realize, well, this is actually really helpful for other veterans to hear stories so that they can apply kind of lessons learned to themselves. Plus, here's a great industry to get involved in. And it just, it helps me, feel like I'm supporting others who might be lost, or support them before they potentially get lost, right? The proactive possibilities.
But you must have got a bit of counseling out of that for yourself in terms of offloading from a personal point of view. Can you speak to that? Or it's kind of reflection, I'll call it, in terms of hearing what other veterans have gone through and how they've gotten out of stages of difficulties, realizing that I actually was doing similar, whether it was, mental thoughts or just, actions in life, which it's kind of hard to describe in many ways, because a lot of times, veterans don't even realize they're in this kind of, I don't know, hole for lack of a better word, stuck in, a scenario, not realizing that you're kind of bogged down from traumas, or not even realizing you have those traumas. So, it's a really funny feeling to hear other veterans talk about, feelings, scenarios, and then realize that, oh, wait a second, like that, that sounds very familiar, and I didn't even know. Okay, well, tell us more about Jet.Build. Well, what is that?
Sure.
Tell us, how did it come about? Why did it come about? What's the mission purpose, and where is it today?
Absolutely. So, just generally speaking, it's a development and construction management platform. So it's software. And the way it came about was when I started, when I truly started my civilian career after undergraduate, I was working for builders, like I mentioned. And it took about, 5 seconds to realize that, managing hundreds and millions of development and construction with Excel and email wasn't a smart way of, managing projects, managing data, managing costs, managing performance, et cetera. So of course, before, my business partner and I started building out a platform, there are other platforms that exist in the marketplace. That said, most of which, or platforms that most people would recognize, they're, typical legacy where they were built, years back. They're very expensive, and therefore I personally was not able to adopt those platforms for platform software, right, for the company I was working for. And that was the inception of Jet. It was basically back in 2017. Basically, what happened was, okay, new technology exists. Building out these systems, building out these softwares is a different world today than it was 20 years ago. We realized, not recreating the wheel, realized the solutions that were in the market, the solutions we needed, my business partner and I, we needed for our jobs, for our projects. We said, all right, well, let's just start building this out for ourselves, right? Let's just create a solution so that we can better manage our projects, better manage our teams. And that's exactly what we did, is we just built solutions, starting with things like drawing management, file management, submittal and RFI processes, bid management, budget management, and just continued over the years building out our solution suite. Again, for ourselves, for our own projects, solving our own pain points. A bunch of years later, here we are with a complete, end-to-end construction command center software. that just allows stakeholders to manage projects, collaborate, host data, and perform better.
Brilliant. So it's not a it is a cloud-based system, I would imagine, but you've done a minimum viable project by using your hands-on experience and the day-to-day experience of, okay, we can do that better. Okay, labor management, we can do that better. Okay, procurement, we can do that better. So you were basically just developing spreadsheets and then turning them into form docs or whatever sort of software you decided to use. And then how did you integrate everything into one package? That must have been a challenge in itself.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was years of effort, right? So it's not, it didn't happen overnight. No. And yeah, I mean, it's just proper software for the industry, right? For building. And yeah, after years of doing that, and what I always say to, fellow entrepreneurs who are trying to kind of build out a system is I always say, well, is it your pain point? Like, can you understand how to build a product, technically, and how it would be implemented in the field or whatever it is you're doing? That's what allowed us to kind of, build it out at a pace that is more efficient than what you'd otherwise presume. For example, if I had an idea of how to fix the auto industry, I mean, I don't know anything about that, so I couldn't, right? So it was because of our knowledge of code and of job site performance, right? We were able to kind of create our solution and technology, right? And just the advancement of technology, all of that allowed us to just build out what we did.
Yeah, like I remember developing our own software, and I had this great idea, and I think it was about 1.5 years into the idea when I had to close the project down because I built it based on what I believed was a problem, mm-hmm. but I didn't. So lessons learned,
right.
Find the project first that has the problem and then build it around the customer mm-hmm. pain point. Don't build it because you think that there's a pain point, because it's your own opinion that there's a pain point. The pain point for me was a lot of money.
Fair enough.
That I had to put in the bin. It cost me. It's like every now and again when my wife is like, if there's any little bit of an argument, but remember you built that software, I was like, oh yeah, don't bring up the software again. But, if I was to do it again, bring the project to the table first and build it around the customer, and don't build it because you think you know better. And you did that, so kudos to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly.
So where is it today? Like, talk to me about numbers. Are you comfortable getting in and giving us some feedback? And like, you're not a minimal viable product anymore. Correct. You're up and running. So mm-hmm. Tell me that you're trailblazing up and down the construction market. Like, where are you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so in 2020, early 2020, we released our product to the market. So it's been a while since, we've been operating, and as you put it, that's a great word, trailblaze in the industry. So, our system is kind of shockingly, and I say shockingly, this is like feedback we always get. It's shockingly robust in a positive way, right? I mean, we really have your end-to-end suite of what you need on a job site across all stakeholders. And again, just modern technology allows us to do that, which is amazing. We continue to refine the product. And what I like to say is, whether you have an Apple device, whether you have a Android, Samsung, whatever device, you must realize that updates will never stop, right? So I find that there's always this kind of perception that, software is not ready, or it's not there, or it's not this or that. Nobody's ever at an end point. It's always going to evolve. So I always like to kind of lay that out. Anyways, that said, yeah, we got a few billion of active construction on the platform right now. Wow. We have several thousand active users, and we're just constantly growing, constantly evolving. It's not easy, so I'm not going to, sugarcoat that. Building a business is a lot of hard work, a lot of ups and downs, minute by minute. But it's very rewarding. And I kind of go after the hard things in life, as I like to put it. So it's challenging in a very good way.
So how do you win your customer over and above your competition?
Yeah, I mean, the best way, especially in this industry, might exist in other industries, which is just kind of referrals, right? Anytime someone is using our product, whether it be our literal client or a stakeholder within that client's ecosystem, within that client's project, that's kind of the best way. And the reason I say that is obviously they're using Jet, they're using our product, so they can see its viability, its simplicity, yet, solution suite that they need. Outside of that, frequently on things like this, like podcasts, just creating awareness of who I am and Jet.Build as a brand. I'm going to events and speaking at events pretty frequently. And just, general sales and marketing outside of those. But always the best way is referrals, because referrals means the person is actually using the product for one reason or another.
And do you find that your customer generally takes the whole package and all the modules, or do they just pick and choose?
Yeah, so that's actually, that's a great question, because what we did is we saw and felt the frictions of industry, right? So part of frictions of industry was older tech, just objectively speaking, expensive, objectively speaking, and silly pricing how do I call it, packages, generally speaking. What I mean by that is, to answer your question, other systems are priced by module, by solution, by this and that. We said, by user, we said, forget all that. What we offer is a flat fee, all inclusive. So it's just simple. You don't have to, have a headache over it. You don't have to pick and choose if you want one or two solutions from one or two modules. You just get the full suite. And again, we're just able to kind of break the mold and change dynamic of how, industry interacts with software, because it's technology that has increased.
Okay. So that's prompted me to ask you more questions, actually.
Sure.
Because that's an interesting model, and I applaud you for it, because let's dive into that. Okay.
Sure.
You're not going per person. You're not going per user. Wow.
Correct.
You're not going with different tiers of a subscription model. You're just saying that's the figure. Take it or leave it.
Correct. What we see is, first of all, we want to encourage collaboration, right? So how you encourage collaboration is, we're not going to nickel and dime by user, right? We're going to say, here's your package. You can now onboard all your stakeholders and properly manage your projects. Now, what is in addition to that is solutions, right? If you need, everything from our construction module, one or two things from collaboration, one thing from accounting, well, here you have it, right? You don't have to limit yourself in kind of centralizing how you operate your projects, how you manage your projects. So again, anything that kind of is friction to process of leveraging technology, we just go head on and say, screw that. Like, we're going to give you what you need and let you build proper.
Do you have investors?
Yeah, so we actually did an early
round.
What's the word I'm thinking for? Yeah, an early round.
Seed round, yeah.
Like a seed, angel, whatever you want to call it. That's what I was just drawing a blank on. That allowed us to kind of shift from, it being a side hustle, essentially, to focusing full time and ramp the product up. That was, a few years back. And today we're just purely operational, not doing any other investment rounds, and really just reinvesting into the business whenever we feel comfortable at this point.
So talk to me around the logic when you sat down with an investor and they said, you're doing one price for everything? Talk to me about that conversation, because I know from sitting on the investor side, they're going to go, no, that's
right.
Where's the scale? How are we going to scale that?
Right. So, again, what's amazing is technology, right? So you gotta, the basis of what our product and our business is always going to come back to technology and product, right? Which is kind of one and the same. So when you realize that you don't need anymore, you don't need, 4,000 people to build out a platform, a management platform, right? Project management platform. Therefore, you don't have that same overhead necessity requirement to cover. And therefore, we can price comfortably where we are and grow accordingly. So it all just goes back to tech.
So when someone turns around and says to you, and I'm not saying that this is what you would say,
sure,
but this is what potentially your competitors might say. Oh, well, storage space, yeah. Once it gets past a certain megabytes or gigabytes, we kind of, we need to sort of add an extra few pound every month or a few dollars every month. You're saying that storage is not an issue. Just so I'm clear on that.
Yeah, I'm saying that people need to get informed and not listen to that, because what we do for storage space, we're built on AWS, right? So you have basically AWS or Microsoft Azure. Those are the two platforms. Yeah, if you want to be a powerhouse player, if you want to use top cloud systems, if you look at what their costs are for cloud storage, you'll be shocked, because it's nothing. We do pass through, right? So if a client wants an additional 20 terabytes of storage, you're going to get the AWS cost for it, which is really nothing.
So boom, there's the USP. One of the USPs there right now is that the storage is not an issue and the user's not an issue. Because exactly. I do feel that people feel that they're being duped, that they see a price and then as soon as they contact the software agency, they're like, oh, well, that's based on a couple of people. That's not based on...
They are being duped.
Oh, what?
They absolutely are. They absolutely are. So what we do is, it's very client dependent. And what I mean by that is, we have clients that are doing 1 or 2 projects a year. We have clients that are doing 300 projects a year. Typically, the 300 projects a year are relatively smaller. The 1 or 2 could be relatively bigger, and everything in between, right? So we'll price accordingly, meaning you'll either have a handful of project package, or you'll have an unlimited package. And again, everything in between. So it's really just dependent on the client and how many projects they have on an annual basis, which will at a certain point just become unlimited anyhow. So it's very flexible in terms of our pricing model.
So here's me thinking that's a negative for your business, because that's the first thing I thought about. And here's you turning that into a positive, saying that probably, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but your scale might well have been because of the fact that you've created that model.
Yeah. So, there's 2 things. One is, again, right, the overhead. Overhead is not massive because modern technology exists. And that's something people really struggle with, right? They struggle to understand that because they look at, Salesforce and Oracle and whatever it may be, and they see 50,000 employees. Well, they're a sales company. They're not a product company. We're really a product company, which allows us to focus on our product, create a very strong, outcome system for our clients, and therefore eliminate overhead and price accordingly. And then in terms of scale, because we price that way, we actually encourage our clients to scale with us, to grow with us, which is mutually beneficial.
Yeah, when you're like, everybody has this buzz of, well, we're creating a community. We're creating a community, but like, community has to be built where all boats rise at the same level. And
exactly.
A lot of the communities I see, it's like a pyramid. It ain't all boats rising together, I can tell you that. Somebody's got a yacht at the front and they're gone, and everybody else is sitting in little dinghies, little rubber boats or whatever. But I get a sense of community. I honestly, from listening to you, I do get a sense of community.
Awesome. That's our goal, right? That's the mission, is give people the tech they need to build properly and grow together. Really give them the opportunity
and learn from each other. And everybody will have a nuance or a different challenge that might be unique to them, but there might be learnings for everybody else in that.
A secondary kind of interesting thought that I always laugh at is, you have a lot of these, public companies talk about, innovation a lot. Well, it's interesting because typically these, larger companies are going to charge you the entirety of your tech budget. So how are you going to innovate? Where are you going to innovate? Right? Yeah. What are you going to, budget, take away, right? And use in order to innovate. So I always also like to say is, well, you actually want to innovate. Well, look at Jet, right? We'll give you a cost-effective price for your core tech stack. And now all of a sudden you can look at that ROI that you just saved by shifting to Jet and actually innovate with other companies, right? You look at safety AI, look at efficiency in whatever it is, concrete pouring and water and steel, whatever it may be, right? Plug it into Jet, and now you got a true innovative tech stack.
So do you do APIs into your own platform as well, if need be?
Correct. Yeah, we're open source, and we have a handful of standard APIs, but we'll also build out whatever's needed when a client onboards.
Love it. I love it. Tell me this: is it global, or are you territory centric in terms of US, or where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, so, we're based in the US, so that's really the focus so far. US, we have one or two clients in Canada. I think we actually have, funny enough, I think we actually have, if I remember correctly, someone I think it's a US company, but build in like a hotel in Thailand or something. I think we also have like one project in it might be in the UK, in Europe somewhere. Anyways, generally speaking, focused in North America because we're based here. But there's really there's no reason why anyone global can't be using Jet.
Yeah, we all speak the same language. Yeah. No, I love it. I think it's brilliant. And I think hats off to you. Like, that's a different take than a lot of the other people I've spoken to in your space. Mm-hmm. So, where do you see the future? Like, what's your plan for the next 5 years? In summary.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just growth, right? More recognition of our brand, smarter solutions as we continue to get client feedback. So we build our roadmap purely based off of how our clients and users use our product. So, we're tracking in a direction where pretty soon, I'll call it in a year from now, I mean, there's going to be such a huge gap in terms of the solution set that we've created, smart, intuitive solution set versus the balance of industry. So, I mean, that's the goal, right? It's just growth in a simple set, in a simple kind of headspace, and then just smart solutions that are really going to drive efficiency and cost time savings for our clients.
Brilliant. And now into another stage of the podcast where we like to throw curveballs at the guests so that we put you on the spot. I hope you don't mind, Adam, yeah?
Let's do it.
Okay. Knowing what you know now, what would you do different? And that could be business or personal. It doesn't have to be business. Yeah,
you know what? I'm going to go back to making fun of myself in my educational journey. I'd go straight to trade school, become an electrician. Just seems intriguing to me. So I would have got trade school and become an electrician.
Brilliant. And something of interest about you that not many people would resonate or would know about you. What would that be?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you brought it up, and I'll bring it up as well. Is 500-hour certified yoga trainer. I did that just from frustration of military injuries and not solving it in the traditional means and methods. Yoga has really helped me kind of understand my body, how it operates, the pains, and manage my injuries accordingly.
Yeah. I have to say that I am the odd frequent visitor to hot yoga. Not Bikram, but it's 100%. You can see the difference, especially if you're doing any sort of physical activity as well. The yoga is great for just, bringing you back down and sort of getting the stretch on and just feeling more grounded, I suppose. Yeah. So you're a yoga teacher.
Yeah. So I went through the certification training, really for myself, right? So I am kind of certified as an instructor, but the course itself, the reason I did it was for, self-teaching, right? Self-improvement and learning.
Self-administration.
Exactly.
And what's the Shailash that's a separate thing to the yoga, obviously.
Yeah. So it's actually part of it. So I authored a book in wellness. It's kind of my own principles. Shailash means 3. So it's 3 pillars. Physical fitness, nutrition, and mental health. And kind of in that book that I wrote there, it's a reflection of 2 treks that I did and how I applied those kind of mentalities in those treks to kind of seek kind of self-awareness, fulfillment, improvement. So it's intertwined, as you put it.
Wow. My God. I feel inadequate talking to you.
Come on,
Tell me this, a favorite book or movie? Again, it doesn't have to be business.
Yeah, book, The Power of Now, sorry. I like audiobooks, and in this case, I really recommend audio particularly because the author narrates it. It's a very famous book. I mean, there's millions of copies. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's unbelievable. I think it's undeniable in the sense of mindfulness. It's essentially around mindfulness. And it's put in such a way where, like I just said, it's kind of like undeniable, and it allows you to realize, how far we as a, just human population have moved away from mindfulness, naturally so, and unfortunately so, I guess. Really powerful book. I highly recommend it.
It's kind of based around staying in the now rather than all the other distractions around us. Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely, I'm with you on the Audible, but more about the glasses, because it just the book, the reading of the book, but then you meet people and it's like they need the hardback, and
different learning mechanisms. But I also, I always say too, is it's certainly hard to find time to, sit down and read. So 100%. If you're doing an audiobook, I mean, you could be driving, you could be walking, you could be on a plane, whatever. I mean, it's easier to accomplish.
I know one guy who his way of reading the book is he puts it in the toilet and he takes out sections of the book, like he takes out like 4 or 5 pages and he leaves it in the toilet.
I mean, anyway, whatever
works for you.
Yeah.
Tell me this: a favorite holiday destination and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I really like to go to different places. I very rarely will return to the same place. As a general principle, I love, nature, whether that be, I'm going to say whether that be, like jungle kind of, geography or mountains or beach, whatever. But I will say I tend to lean more toward kind of mountainous areas. I find it so humbling. That's my best way of putting it. If you're on a, mountainous range area and you have a view of what's around you, it's really humbling to understand how 100%. Small you are.
100%. Which brings me on to the last question: is if I told you were going to retire next week, what would you do in your retirement? Go for it.
That's easy for me. I mean, I would, I got my daily routine, which is, my wellness routine in the morning, and then, followed by work and et cetera for the rest of the day. I would expand on that routine. So I would, do a lot more mobility, breath work, meditation, training, exercise. I would cook a lot more because I had more time. I would, read a lot more or listen to more books. I would continue the podcast, probably produce more of it. And that's pretty much that'll take right there. That'll take up your day.
Here's your brother, because you just explained pretty much exactly what I would do as well. So
that's awesome.
Listen, Adam, if people want to get in touch with you, like, what way do you approach things? Is like, open to a conversation? How do people get in touch with you? What's the message?
Yeah, always happy to network, always happy to learn from other people, brainstorm. Find me on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm very active there, as you pointed out, right? And I'll always get back to you. So yeah, just find me on LinkedIn, reach out. Happy to connect.
And the website is Jet.Build.
Correct. So rather than .com, right? Jet.Build.
Yeah, Jet.Build. So we put that in the show notes. Adam awesome. Stark, you're an amazing person, I have to say. Like, you've done a lot, and a lot more than what other people would have achieved at your stage of life. And I think it's a credit to you. And please keep doing what you're doing. I love the space that you're in with the veterans, because it's an untapped massive resource, especially for construction. Hopefully people that listen to this might take a view that, hold on a minute, I need to speak to the whatever army, and then see if there's opportunities to bring exceptional people like yourself into the construction world, so that we better the construction industry. And I think, the more the better. So thanks very much for being on the Gaffer, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, Gavin. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my story and what I'm doing through your channel, and looking forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, definitely. Take care.